Hello.
Colt,
How's
they're
everyone
joining
doing?
us. It's happening.
It's happening. Tags and taxonomies for supercharging your e-commerce SEO.
Woo-hoo.
How's our viewership looking? Is everyone piling in?
Piling in. You're filling the Coliseum. It is it is people upon people. Everybody was telling I was outside earlier today. I was talking to my mailman and he's like, "Are you going to Colt's e-commerce SEO webinar?"
Yeah,
And I
I
was
got a lot of
like,
spread.
I helped set that up. I was like, I know Colt. I know him.
Thanks. Thank you for that ringing endorsement. All
Hey,
right, so are you ready for this? Let's launch into it. Okay, so you are today watching using tags and taxonomies to supercharge your e-commerce SEO. Please keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. So I am Colt Sliva. I am the SEO engineer at iPullRank. I have 10 plus years making websites and acquiring organic traffic. And I have a special focus on natural language processing and information architecture. And for that's the boring stuff. What we really care about is where do I rank my Disney movies, cereals, dogs, brands, and states that I've worked in. And this is probably going to be pretty controversial, so please fight me at the end. We are going to cover tags and taxonomies. So really what we're doing is qualitative and quantitative analysis, just like I've done here for all of the best things in life, like crunch berries.
wait, 1 sec. We have to address.
Sure.
To address the Disney in the room.
You mean my early 2000s picks?
Just some explanation as to why Atlantis is a S-level Disney movie in your opinion, and then I'll allow you to proceed.
Because I have rewatched it more than any other Disney movie, and I don't think that it got the representation that it deserved. I'm still waiting for my Atlantis ride at Disney World, and I was just there. Can confirm it does not exist.
Ooh. Okay. I'm going to go watch it this weekend, and we will have a spirited debate on one of our Wednesday SEO chats.
That sounds awesome. Okay, so today we're going to be covering, I'm going to go over the overview, and then we're going to talk about how we label products, and then how we group those products together, and then what sort of algorithms that Google uses. And then we're going to talk about some tools to help you, and then how to really use these new ideas to get your e-commerce SEO supercharged. So we're going to be talking about general e-commerce here. So I just want to point out that all platforms are supported. I'm going to be using terminology that might cross multiple platforms. So when I say, tags or attributes or shop by or faceted, or I think with Shopify, their properties, I'm really talking about the same thing. And that's sort of the labels that we attach to products, so that way we can describe them, navigate by them. And then I'm going to be talking about categories and subfolders as similar things. So really, each platform, each CMS has its own way of organizing things, and we want to sort of group all of that together and just say, we're going to be talking about tags and the taxonomies. And I just wanted to stop and explain why e-commerce taxonomies matter. So it's sort of the starting point for how we think, talk, name about things, organize them, and link all of it together. And so I want to give you a framework on how to write some better titles and meta descriptions, which is specifically relevant today since Google is sort of rewriting those for us. And then we're going to talk about how to use those titles to create from broad match to long tail keywords. And then how we can use this to create better internal linking for higher internal page ranks, how to improve time on site through this, how to build topical relevance, design better URLs, and then, of course, help Google's crawlers find your content. So to start with labeling products, or how we talk about the things that we sell, naming things is hard. For people who program, it's probably the hardest part of programming because just sort of giving descriptive names to things is difficult. And there's a science for everything, including that. So in linguistics, there's 3 levels of categorization: the superordinate, the basic, and the subordinate. So if you look over on the graph on the right, the superordinate would be like a mammal, and then the basic would be a dog, and then the subordinate would be a specific kind of dog, like a terrier. And this is really common across multiple languages and design systems. And to some people, this might look like a folder, which is exactly the point. So if you look at this URL structure, it's designed from broad to specific. So from the superordinate to the subordinate. And then it will also look like a product title, where we go in the reverse order. We would go from the subordinate to the basic to the superordinate. So when you're thinking about how to name your product, think about what is the broadest description of it, and then how do you specify down to use that for your folder names and your products. And then when we're labeling these, we want to think about what makes them different, and that would be the study of ontology. So that would be properties, tags, facets, features, and attributes, like I mentioned. So again, we're going to turn to frameworks. So our framework here, as you can see, Santa, we've given him a type of flying, and the plural of Santa is Santa, and he has 5 active warrants, right? So these are all traits that he has. And we want to sort of make a framework out of that where you could apply this to any product. So when you are creating a new product, you want to make sure that you've given it whatever make, model, brand, color, size, fit, material. What is it related to? What is the style, experience, function, use, or who's the audience for the thing? Negative matches, like who is it not for, or what does it not do? And then rules for sales, like oftentimes you'll see, products below $10, or different levels of pricing. And then events, is this a special edition? Is it a release for a specific season? What sort of like calendar seasonality is there related to the thing? And then now that you have described this product with a name and a set of traits, then we want to build relationships to it. So there's 2 types of relationships. There's a is a relationship and a has a relationship. So when thinking about the thing, we want to say, just like here, a car is a vehicle, where the vehicle is the parent, and then a car has an engine, where an engine could be considered like a child or a part. So again, we can link products by the parts that make them up or the sections that they belong to. So now that we've sort of defined a product and we are able to link it together with its different traits, then we want to think about how we group them. So the first thing that we want to think about is the category. And this would be like the structures on the right, where there is a root parent and each descending node is contained within it. So this is exactly like a folder structure, which is how the web used to largely be built, although now all of that is hidden behind CMSs. But really what we want to do is take your product and put it in a single category, and that is your canonical. And then the category is also the subfolder, which means that it is the URL. So this is just an up and down sort of relationship. There is no left to right siblings. The purpose of left to right navigation would be tags, which is more like a network structure. And there's all sorts of different architectures that you can do with this. And that is because they are unsorted. They are many to many relationships. You can really link them in any direction. And it's much more abstract. And I would say that this is the most underused tool in SEO, is how do we take our tags, link products together, and build these connections across the site?
Hey, Colt, why do you think it is underused in SEO?
So basically everyone ends up with some sort of category structure, and they always end up linking up and down with like breadcrumbs. But the tags, oftentimes people aren't sending people, or e-commerce sites are not sending people across the site. They assume that because you're in a certain category, you might not want to move laterally. And that is largely an incorrect assumption, and it's bad for distributing PageRank.
Gotcha. So it's not a technically difficult or complex thing. It's really a philosophy and kind of spreading the information, the navigation around.
I think we do it poorly because it's just built in by nature of the CMS. And so this is something that we need to plan for. So putting this into practice, here's a Nike product listing page with faceted navigation. So by faceted navigation, I mean this sidebar where we've picked out a gender, the shop by price, right? So the traits. And we've filtered down, and you can see that the page title is changed, and they've also given this unique URL. So really what we've done here is we've said, here's the category for the thing, which is lifestyle shoes, right? Because we can see that in the breadcrumbs. And then everything else is a trait. Now, what Nike might be missing here is recommended products across the site, where they might want to shop for other blue products or other $0 to $25 products. And even if customers don't care to shop for that, you can still include it somewhere below the fold, where then search engines do care about this topical relevance. So we've sort of talked about categories and tags, and when we merge them together, something magical happens. And here is a commercial, if anyone's seen it, where a cute little girl wants 2 kinds of tacos, and she says, "Por qué no las dos?"
Story of my life.
So oftentimes people's sitemaps or site graphs will start with this unorganized mess of no clear clusters or topics, or they will be organized but only by folder. And then you're maybe manually internally linking, causing this mess. And so we want to use tags to organize this. So when we sort of merge this holy perfection of 2 categories and tags, then you get a system where you can see that there's clear sections, but there's also internal linking across the sections that are much more efficient. And you end up with these highways or arteries that will send traffic across the site to diverse sections. And you end up with higher crawl rates, better product discovery, better internal page rank distribution because of those internal links spreading. And then customers will browse more products. You will see higher conversion rates, and you will get better analytics through the subfolders because you have better sort of classification on your products. So faceted taxonomies are really what we're talking about here. We don't want faceted navigation where you just select it and it adds a parameter to the URL. We want unique pages which are going to describe the diverse products that we can then internally link from and to spread value and create more keyword relevant pages. So there's a great article by Botify that makes the case that faceted navigation isn't as great as we think it is, even though it's so common in e-commerce. It creates multiple versions of the same URL. And that means duplicate content, diluted link equity, wasted crawl budget with spider traps. So what we need is true taxonomy pages for SEO. And these are sort of shop by pages, which are also ideal for organic landing pages, because usually the keyword ends up being in the URL, the title, descriptions. So how do we understand then how Google is sort of visiting through our taxonomy and discovering new products or assigning value to these pages? And the benefit of creating these product listing pages informed by taxonomy is that you create a huge number of long tail landing pages, like I mentioned, but the downside is that Google has to be able to find them, navigate between them, classify intent. So the first one that I want to talk about is called Dijkstra's, and it's imagine that this graph here, this graph paper look, is each cell next to another cell is a link, and Google is trying to find the most direct path from one product to another. So this could be used for like new page discovery. How many hops does it take to find a new page? Or how long would it be to get a user to the correct product that they want? So reducing this number of steps is a sort of function of e-commerce success, which is why internal linking is so important. The next algorithm that I want to talk about has been in the web for a while, and that's the random surfing model. And the idea is that what if Google pretended to be an internet surfer, and they would either arrive at a page by randomly clicking through links or just directly entering the website's URL in the address bar. And so here we're watching someone hop around from 124717. They're visiting the same page, and there's a chance that they might never reach 3. So this is often why websites run into crawl budget issues, is because without proper high volume internal linking, there's a chance that people just might never reach certain pages. Now, everyone knows about PageRank in the SEO industry, but many people don't understand how it's calculated. So what it does is it basically starts every page on your website at a value of 1. And it passes, when you link out, it passes 85% of the value, and it runs around and around and around, passing value. And something weird happens after you run this 20 times or so, is that it sort of consolidates on a value. So each of these pages sort of grows and shrinks in value as it passes links around. And at some point, it just sort of stops changing, and the numbers become what is PageRank. So linking more often ensures that you don't need to sort of do this PageRank sculpting and figure out PageRank issues, because you're properly distributing it to the correct pages. And then the key action item here that I want to mention is that often the home page is sort of the most central part of the site, and it has the most value acquired from external links. So if you do want to increase value of specific pages, go ahead and bring those as close to the home page as possible, or even within the main content area, not the footer or the header, and you can increase PageRank, internal PageRank, that way extremely efficiently. The last one that I want to talk about here is k-means clustering. So Google is not necessarily using this exact algorithm, however, they have in the past. And what this does is that when we are linking together and talking about specific topics, we're using words that can be clustered together with this k-means clustering algorithm. So what we see here is that they have drawn circles around specific sections of the site. So without even having like a subfolder structure, or without having clearly defined sections of your site, they're still sort of able to cluster them together. So the benefit of having these tags and taxonomies is that you've been clear about what you want to categorize together with your categories, but what you're doing is creating diverse clusters that can then be targeting different intents. So through k-means clustering, what you're doing is creating many more categories for Google to understand that your website is about. And what that means is that you will rank for more keywords. So how do we beat the machine? Here's a few case studies on improving internal linking. Again, I know that this was a tags and taxonomies discussion, but really what that ends up meaning is that you are creating new ways to link your pages and products together. So it could have been an internal linking conversation, but the benefits here are pretty massive. So Credo did a study of increasing their internal links, and they saw a benefit of 74% increase of organic sessions, 41% pages per session, up 148% of users, which is massive. SpyFood did something similar and saw an increase of 129% keywords ranked. And then Ninja Outreach did a study and saw a 40% increase in organic traffic. So the takeaway here is, of course, internal link often, both by tags and categories, and then include the links include links both on listing pages and product pages.
Cool. Quick question there.
Yeah.
Is there too many internal links? Is there any sort of like threshold that you should consider?
Google at one time had said that there was an upper limit of 100, and then that sort of over time became very false. I see a common just from my own internal my own experience, I would say that 200 is a good target. for most websites, but there is no upper cap now. The more that you do internal link, the more flat your page rank distribution will be. So if you're really trying to define important pages, then you don't necessarily want to go completely wild, because then you won't be able to sort of signal outliers that this page is special.
So some thought should really go into this process, especially if you're working on like a 1,000,000-page website.
For a 1,000,000-page website, so the larger the website, also the more internal links that you'll probably want to see. And again, like the homepage is receiving the most external value. So as long as I would in general recommend increasing internal linking, especially through tags and taxonomies. But then on top of that, I would assign my high value pages somewhere close to the homepage, I would say, is the strategy. So what sort of tools do we have available to architect our site taxonomy? The first one I would recommend is YED. It's free. It's a graph editor that lets you nest things just like folders. And so here I've sort of given an example of tags pointing to a cluster, or I mean a folder set of folders. And it's just a great way to sort of play with these nodes, explore, how you can change things, and then make live changes without editing your website. And then the next one that I would recommend, of course, everyone probably already has access to. If you don't, please go get Screaming Frog. And this is the visualization tool part of Screaming Frog. So run a crawl on your site, and then go to the visualizations top bar, and they give you crawl tree graph and directory tree graph. So those are your categories or your subfolders, and those will provide visualizations sort of, vertically like we talked about. And then force-directed crawl diagrams, which is what you see on the right there. That is the networked graph. So that is what we would want to see organized by tags. I saw some questions coming through.
Yeah, we got a question from Mike Crow from Marketers. He wants to know, is there a ratio you use for how many internal links and external links to use on a page? Let's say a page of 1,000 words.
I don't think so, no. There would definitely be examples of directory pages where they would have no words, and you're just sort of creating a sitemap for your page. And then there would be examples where you're just trying to build out a 1,000-word article, and I don't think there's some minimum or maximum threshold that you need to hit.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I've seen like advice say one way or the other, so it's good to know your perspective.
It's handy if you have tools like Yoast, let's say, where you want to assign like an automated value to a page and you want to encourage internal linking. Then that is where I would say that it's valuable. Okay, so now that we've sort of gone through some theory, here's some ideas on how to apply this to your e-commerce store. Some of these may need some custom development, but these should all sort of add value based on the tags that you create. So the first thing that you might want to do is automate some product details. So through the faceted assigned sort of labels that we have, we can create sort of like a fabric lining or transparency, right? That transparency. So that we're talking about material here, but we could apply sort of like a price scale visual. So people don't necessarily read everything, and a lot of times you end up packing a ton of information on product pages. So we can take the assignments that we've made and turn this into sort of visuals for customers. And then additionally, if people wanted to maybe go explore similar material products, then you could include internal links on a graphic like this one, and allow people to sort of go explore by material or fabric or stretch in this case. Additionally, with tags, you can use it to build a recommendation engine. So applying, values to tags, or looking at similar tags. If you maybe want to send people across the site in different categories, you say match tags, but not category. Just consider different ways where do you want to drive customers, and then how do we use the tags to do that? Next, of course, you want to build a mega menu. And oftentimes this might look like applying age range pages, as Nike's done here, or pricing, right? So we can start getting specific targeting going from our mega menu, where you know that you have a specific type of customer who regularly comes looking for something, and you want to make it easy for them to find it. That should be built into your menu.
Makes a lot of sense. I can imagine too, like with your own keyword research, you would have a good sense of what makes sense for you to try to get in there in terms of like the long tail keywords you see drive value.
Yeah, and usually business drivers will come to you and say, hey, we see a certain level of traffic in this category, and we want 20% more. How do we make that happen?
How quick can that be implemented? Because one thing that's coming in the back of my mind now is like you've got things like Labor Day is coming up this weekend, or like Black Friday is now in a few months from now. Are any of these, will they work for like that quickly?
Yeah, so if you already have a mega menu, then and it doesn't matter if it's a sort of classical faceted navigation, or if you're doing it this style where you're creating unique URLs. But basically just click the faceted navigations that you want, make sure that you get back a unique URL and it's not done with JavaScript, and then apply it to your mega menu.
That's cool. That's a good clarification too about the non-JavaScript unique URL.
Yeah. So you can also apply additional dynamic links, since we now have so many descriptive pages, right? And we know how we're splitting up our titles. So we know that this would be in the shoes category for the basketball sport. And we can find that that is a high volume keyword. And so we want to maybe increase the internal links. So what we're going to do here is go grab this information from the SEMrush API, pull it in, build our internal links automatically based on volume and some other metrics, and then you're doing automated PageRank sculpting like it's 2005, but with the technology of today. Next, this is a great one for sort of time on site and customer experience, and helping them find the right taxonomy, is build out a quiz. So oftentimes we can sort of relate choices or interests into these tags and taxonomies. And so by their choices, you can send them to a specific category or find a set of products that might match for them. And this is an alternative way to create navigation, which has the opportunity to go viral because it's more experiential. So by using your tags and taxonomies in some sort of unique quiz format, we can build a way for people to traverse to different sections of the site without necessarily having to navigate page to page to page and apply their own facets.
That one makes so much sense. And I can just imagine, like, as an SEO, if you're partnering with your marketing team, like, that's something that the marketing team would get psyched about as well. So it's like, if you ever, have a challenge of like getting everyone on board for a project like this, like, I feel like a quiz is one of the easier sells to like across the whole marketing team.
Yeah, this doesn't necessarily directly help SEO, but by the time that you've already implemented effective tags and taxonomies and then get to the quiz, you've just done SEO, and then you're doing some extra experiential marketing on top of that. And then finally, there should be a better way to dynamically link our products and our blog posts together. Oftentimes, your e-commerce management system is different from your CMS, and those can be extremely disparate. And sometimes e-commerce organizations will fail to merge content, or they're just not implementing marketing with shop functionality. And today people could shop on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, right? So cross-platform e-commerce is extremely popular now. We need to be doing multi-channel marketing. So the least that we could do is make shopping more convenient and implement and merge our content marketing with our products. So sort of taking it back to the beginning, a lot of those will take custom development. But if you are intentionally designing your taxonomies, planning for this, using these ideas for information architecture, then you will get out of this better titles and descriptions, a broader range of keywords from broad to long tail, and then and better internal link distribution, time on site, topical relevance, right? Everything that we talked about before. So the benefits of this, it opens up a world of new features, but it also starts at a world of SEO benefits. And that's what I've got for you today.
Dude, oh man, there's so much stuff there. So if anyone in the chat does have any questions for Colt at this point, we definitely have a little time for some Q&A. One thing that I was interested in, Colt, was when you're starting from the beginning. So a lot of folks have established websites, and you were showing those examples of, like, you know, the graph of, like, it looks like a ball of yarn because they didn't really think about their site architecture from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
What is your starting point? Like, how long would a project like that? Obviously, it depends on the size of the site, but how do you start to kind of unravel that? Do most people bring on agencies? Do they do it in-house? Like, what's your perspective?
I don't know if there's a necessarily split between agency or in-house. And those projects really depend on the data in versus the data out, right? So a lot of this starts at the product level first, and how you think about your products. So if that is if that needs a complete restructuring, then you need to start relabeling products and planning on a full migration with redirects. If you have good data in and you just didn't implement it very well, then I think you can work off of what you built and make incremental changes, start A/B testing things. And that process could take, let's say, 6 months, but you could easily start implementing things within 2 weeks.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it's obviously like starting, you know, not always just planning, but actually start implementing. What are top recommendations? So I mentioned Black Friday earlier coming up, like, in reference to this, or just in general for e-commerce, what can someone do now before Black Friday that might have an impact on their SEO?
I would think about an extra recommendation widget somewhere. So start thinking about how do you tie products together, and then start looking for sidebar space or below the fold space to build that into your site, and start building those links. And then start thinking about what sort of traits and attributes make up the products that are popular during that time, assuming that you do have that data from the previous Black Fridays. And maybe, you know, what are your ideal customers that you want to try to target this year?
Yeah, because each year, I mean, obviously, with the current, you know, world situation, every year it's going to be slightly different if you've done your audience research.
Yeah, last 2020's data always has an asterisk next to it.
Lee Driggers actually asks, are there good leading indicators when you add in good internal linking? Like, have you been able to measure a difference in crawl rate from logs on pages changed?
Yes, so you will see an increase in crawl rate. That might go down over time as it sort of solidifies and they have all of that cached, but that would be a good indicator. I mean, of course, you can try to use impressions as a signal, because oftentimes that is a sign that PageRank has been adjusted. Trying to think of what other leading. I mean, there isn't really any true leading indicator in SEO. Almost everything that we get is processed multiple times and ends up being somewhat lagging. But I would say definitely the logs and impressions are a good signal.
Cool. Jesse Cole wants to know, for tag pages from like a WordPress perspective, where editors have gotten out of control and there are tons of tag pages highlighting only a single post, is that a thin content problem worth worrying about?
So it's a thin content problem if you are getting keyword cannibalization. So if you are seeing traffic sort of dropping from the pages that you want to get traffic, and they are competing with some of these tag pages, then I would trim those. But as far as like Google update thin content, I wouldn't necessarily worry about that. It might be good to set some sort of like company standards for tagging if editors have gotten out of control though.
That's an interesting thing to think about too, in terms of like if you're an SEO who wants to start this project. You mentioned a bunch of examples in the webinar, but like if you were going to pitch this to the C-suite, what's the best way that you'd recommend of getting buy-in?
So definitely you see the benefits from user navigation, which we don't have as much data on, but the data is pretty clear about the benefits of the internal linking, right? So, when they see the 40% and the 76% of organic increases, then it becomes clear that with proper information architecture, you get a pretty huge boost.
I think that's compelling. I mean, and you can always tie that to revenue as well. Colt, this has been awesome. I think it's a lot of really great actionable data. If anyone else has any questions, Colt, you want to just kind of go through where to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. That's where I'm most often. So feel free to at me or direct message me. You can email me directly at colt@iPullRank.com. And then, of course, you can check out our website. We are hiring, we are growing, and we're always looking for clients. And we do awesome work. So please come check us out.
I agree. And to end it, Noah says, so what he's hearing is he needs to build a widget. Noah Lerner.
There's always a widget, Noah. You should know that. As a professional widget builder yourself, there's always a better widget.
Oh man. On that note, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Garrett Sussman, Demand Generation Manager at iPullRank. Colt Sliva, been kicking butt as SEO engineer. We'll see y'all. If you have any interest in doing any future webinars, please always email Colt as well for any ideas that you would love. Thank you all again, and let's sign off.
Thank you, everyone.